What is up, guys? It is me, the former film student, back today with another episode in my 31 Nights, 31 Frights series. So I hope you guys are enjoying the series so far. We are 4 episodes in. On my last episode, I talked about Nightmare on Elm Street, a classic of 80s slasher films, and today I'm continuing that little trend by talking about Friday the 13th. So Friday the 13th was released in 1980 or 1981, I believe. I don't know the exact year, and I'm too lazy to look it up. But yeah, in my opinion, and I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or a hot take or something like that, but I believe out of the sort of holy trinity of classic slashers, that being Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and Jason Voorhees, that the Friday the 13th franchise is sort of the weakest out of the three in terms of quality. Now, I still enjoy those films to some degree, but I just don't find them as interesting or as scary as the other two. I think probably the biggest aspect of that is that both of the other franchises, Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, had really great directors to at least helm the first and second films in those series. Whereas Friday the 13th never really had that iconic director, that director who just had such, masterful abilities when it came to working behind the camera. But yeah, John Carpenter and Wes Craven are two of the best to ever make horror films. So it's hard to compare the two, and I think the only reason that the three of them sort of get lumped together is because they each had a very iconic horror movie villain in those franchises. But yeah, there's still a lot to enjoy about this movie. My favorite aspect of this movie, and it's one that I didn't really get until I rewatched the film years later, is that it's a very suspenseful movie. And if you haven't seen it, I'm going to be spoiling something right now. So if you haven't seen this movie, or you plan on rewatching it and you don't really remember much about it, then you may want to exit this video, go watch it, and then come back here, because I will be spoiling the ending right now. I'm ready in three, two, one. So at the end of the film, it is revealed that the killer is Mrs. Voorhees, Jason Voorhees' mother. So that is one of my favorite reveals in any horror film ever. In Scream, they sort of, reference it, or actually, I think it's Scream 2. He says, the killer can be a female because Mrs. Voorhees was a great villain in the first Friday the 13th. And they even referenced that movie in the first Scream as well, I think, at the beginning of the film when he's asking her questions to see if she'll live or die. Anyway, yes, the reveal that Mrs. Voorhees was the villain, I think, adds a lot of rewatchability to the film because when you watch it a second time, knowing that the iconic character of Jason is not the first villain in the series, it adds this extra layer of, okay, now this makes sense, and oh yeah, that's why that sort of happens, and a lot of that is stuff that you don't really get when you watch it the first time, because if you're like me, you always associate Jason Voorhees with Friday the 13th, even before watching the franchise. That's, he's the iconic character from those movies, so you expect him to be in the first movie, and you're wondering, okay, maybe they're just not showing him because they want to reveal the way he looks at the end of the movie to the audience. But then you're like, well, why are these characters trusting this person? Why are they getting in the car with them? Why are they treating them as if they just look like a normal person? And then the reveal happens at the end, and you're like, oh my god, it's one of those, endings to a film that's sort of a plot twist or sort of a big reveal. And it's one of the only ones that I think from past films really holds up now. A lot of people associate Jason with that franchise, so you can go back and watch that movie not knowing that the first one doesn't have him in it and that it's actually his mother as the killer, and it's just a cool, fun reveal that unlike ones from like Empire Strikes Back or The Sixth Sense, you can't watch that movie without knowing the spoiler in it. But yeah, so that's really cool. So it adds a layer of suspense into the film. You keep wondering why these people trust this person, and I love that it's so subtle because that wouldn't happen nowadays. You wouldn't have a film where the villain of the film you do not see until literally like the last 15 minutes. Unless it's like a murder mystery, and this one doesn't really work like a murder mystery. Like, in my opinion, you're never led to believe that any of the other counselors are the people who are killing each other. You're always led to believe that it's just like some external killer. And they do such a good job of keeping Mrs. Voorhees hidden and not showing her, not, having her speak any dialogue. She stays silent the entire film until the end. And then you have that really creepy scene at the end when she finally comes out. And you at first, you're like, okay, even from like the first time you see her, not knowing she's the villain, you're like, this person, I haven't seen them. But that is a creepy ass woman right there, and I love that part where she first arrives.
How are you? Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees, an old friend of the Christies.
Oh, thank you. That's so great. I'm
no, no,
so
no. can't help you if you don't calm down, please.
She kind of tricks the girl into believing that she's there to help. And then when she just reveals herself, it's so creepy, and the actress does such a fantastic job delivering that dialogue. Easily the best actress in the film. Everyone else is a little, it's 80s horror film acting, so I'm not going to be too critical, but hey, Kevin Bacon is in the movie, so that's cool. But yeah, the camp counselors aren't all that great, but the actress who plays Mrs. Voorhees does a phenomenal job in the film. And I agree with what Randy says in Scream 2. She is a great movie antagonist, a great serial killer, because you just don't expect it. She just looks like this innocent, middle-aged, suburban mother. She's just this crazy murderous woman. And she plays evil so well. She's so like kind of over the top and like extra creepy, and in a modern day film it probably wouldn't work because it would just come off as like cheesy and tacky, but it was the 80s, so there's sort of some charm to how cheesy it is. I really enjoy that reveal. And just as a whole, there's some really fun kills in this film. Some of the special effects don't look all that great, but there's some really unique fun kills in this movie, and the whole slasher in the woods sort of genre that sort of came out of this film, it was started here. And although I don't think this is the best entry in the franchise, which is surprising because usually the first one is the best, but this one just, I felt, tried a little too hard to be like Halloween, but just didn't have any of the directorial talent. But again, I still think they do a good job with suspense and making this less of a straight up slasher and more of a thriller mystery with some cool kills in it. There's a lot to enjoy about this movie. The score, similar to Halloween, similar to Nightmare on Elm Street, is just this really great 80s score. It just sort of has a very unique taste to it. It's sort of like the and it's so cool. It's so different than other horror scores from that time. It really separates itself. I think the music, I think the kills, and I just think the overall mystery in the film is the best aspects of this movie. Some of the technical aspects, it's not overly well shot. The acting's not really that good. And some of the special effects are dated, but again, it came out in the early 80s. I still think it's a horror classic. It's not as good as Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street, but it's still a fun, entertaining movie, and it's a good movie to watch around the Halloween season. It sort of has that sort of, you know, old slasher feel to it that it helped create, which I think just again, it's a little nostalgia for the 80s. Obviously, I wasn't alive, but that sort of 80s nostalgia, like Stranger Things type stuff. It just has a lot of that, and overall, I just think it's a really fun movie. And if you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you check it out, even if you know the spoiler because you continued watching this if you hadn't seen it. It's still a really fun movie to watch, and again, it's really good around the Halloween season. So if you're looking for a fun, campy slasher movie, check this one out. So that's all I really have to say about this movie. Let me know what you guys thought about it in the comments down below. Do you think I'm completely wrong in comparing it to the other two? Do you think it stands up just as good as the other two? Or do you agree that it's sort of the lackluster, ugly stepsister of the three? But yeah, maybe that was a little bit of a harsh way to put it. Well, but anyway, yep, I love to have an interaction with you guys in the comments, so I'd love to discuss this movie. I don't have a ton of thoughts on it as it's not as crucial to me as the other two are, but still, let me know. Yeah, and again, if you liked this video, make sure to click the like button, and if you want to hear more from me, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to click the little bell notification so they get notified when I post videos. And again, look forward to more episodes in my October series, 31 Nights, 31 Frights. Remember, I am reviewing a new horror film every day of October from the 1st all the way to the 31st, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.